Fletch. Welcome to the weekly accessibility and hi guys, this is Glenn and Fletch. Welcome to the weekly accessibility and optimization power hour. We've visited with you guys the last few weeks, probably about a month or so now, primarily talking about web accessibility. Well, today, to stay true to our name, we want to give some information and share so that business owners or other marketers may really understand what we're talking about when we talk about optimization. With optimization, we're talking about search engine optimization or having properties appear higher on Google when people are searching for your products or your services. And we want to kind of really share with some people that may not be aware, kind of what I call the anatomy of Google. When someone does a search for you, for your services, for your products on Google, there are three parts of Google that they're going to show. And so we kind of want to walk through, explain those to you so that you understand them maybe a little bit better. So the next time someone is talking to you about maybe buying some ads on Google or about different types of optimization, you're more inclined to know what someone is selling you so that you can make a better informed buying decision. So that's what our goal is for today, to have you understand a little bit more about what optimization is in 2020 and how Google is working in 2020.
Yeah, Glenn, this is big because, my background online primarily has been working in search engine optimization. And there's a lot, it took me a while to, I won't say understand what that meant, because I knew what it meant because I wasn't getting any traffic, right? I knew that I was not getting people who called me that needed my services. And so I kind of backed into it just saying, hey, I want more people to call me. But as I got into it and started fleshing it out and understanding it more properly and with more clarity and with more detail, some of these details are very, very important. And some of those details are what we're going to talk about today. And one of the other things that we've kind of, I guess, uncovered or, from my perspective, is like, I knew what I knew, but I didn't necessarily know what other people were aware of. And so I wanted to make sure that we could overcome that kind of barrier of communication. And one of the main ways to do that is to help people become more educated on what we do. And so one of the main things that we've been kind of marketing or talking about over the last, closing on a year now, 9 months, is accessibility. And accessibility is a very small, it's not very small, but it's a very narrow way of making sure that websites have certain criteria in place. And, with my background and the people that I know, it surprised me because I've been talking about accessibility, right, in this language. And a lot of people would ask me, well, hey, but how does this rank? How does this work with search engine optimization? Is there something you can do to help me rank better? And these are people that I've coached and taught, and people that I've provided services to in the past. And it was really, it opened my eyes a little bit to how distinctive language can kind of keep you from seeing things. And so what we want to talk about today is really that there is a fundamental way of building websites that communicate properly through technology so that they are deemed valuable to humans and to machines. And to the machines is what we're going to be focusing on today. And we're going to be talking about a few different things that show up if you go Google something or Bing something or Yahoo something. It's kind of interesting that we can say you Google something, right? That's a verb. But not many people talk about Yahooing something or YouTubing something. But all of those are search engines. And those search engines are built in such a way to have to figure out what in the world content is about and decide which content to show when somebody is looking for a solution to a problem or an answer to a question or whatever it might be. And that's really the world I come out of. And especially, from the online marketing perspective, I have a background previous to that in industrial engineering, which is optimization modeling. And so I kind of backed into Google SEO or search engine SEO with a really solid scientific and statistical understanding of how these things worked. And as soon as I kind of mapped that, it was like the whole world opened up. And so one of the things that we want to do is to continue to help other people see like, oh, this is really just math and science as far as getting on the top there. Staying on the top may mean actually communicating well with people, having good content, right? If you have junky content over time, you may lose some people over time. But today, what we want to do is help people understand what is SEO, right? Search engine optimization. How do search engines work, right? And I think the first thing maybe.
Hello? Seems like you may have frozen there for a second, Fletch. All right, I'm going to keep talking until Fletch comes back. Hopefully everything is still working well. I think one of the things that maybe will help people to understand is kind of what is search engine optimization. In my opinion.
Okay, there came back.
All right, I'm sorry. I was just started to talk while you were gone. So you said you wanted to start where?
I think one of the first things we will do is just go to the big, the elephant in the room, Google, and maybe look at what we call a SERP, SERP, which stands for Search Engine Result Page, and kind of just take it apart and have a look at it and see what the different component parts of really the first page of Google is all about. I know from personal experience before I got into SEO, as well as after, that I got a lot of calls from salespeople who offered me stuff, right? Whether it was SEO or, getting on the first page of Google. That can mean a lot of different things. And so what we want to do primarily with this element of today is talk about what those different things can be and how people interact with that first page of Google, what we call the SERP, and kind of break that down. And so Glenn's going to go into that. We're going to do a screen share here real quick on the side. And Glenn's going to go into what the first page of Google looks like and what it means.
All right. Thanks, Fletch. All right. So when you do a search for almost anything, when you have a service and or product and a geographic location, and this is how most people search for something. They're going to search for something in an area either where they're at or where they're looking for something. So the first thing you're going to see here are the ads that Google puts up there. And typically you're going to see 3, sometimes it may be 4. And these ads are going to get clicked on about 12% of the time. Because a good click-through rate's about 4%. An average click-through rate's about 2.5 to 3. So again, plus or minus, depending on the search, depending on the category, depending on the product, roughly on average, 12% of the time, someone's going to click on one of these ads. As you scroll down the page, you're going to see the Google Maps, where typically you would have 3 locations. This is called the Google 3-pack, some people may call it, as well as in some areas you have an ad that their businesses are purchasing from Google. So in this area here, in my experience of tracking phone numbers, tracking calls of what people are doing, about 10% of the time or so, they're going to click on here. Again, these are averages. You may have a little bit higher or a little bit lower. These are just the experiences that I've seen over the past few years. Then once you scroll down, you get to the main part of Google where people are going to click on because they know that this should be a local business. This should not be someone running an ad to me. And this should be a good provider. And this part down here is going to get hit about 3/4 of the time when someone's looking for a local business or a local service. Some of these numbers I'm going to talk about may be skewed a little bit here when we're looking at attorneys, because a lot of times people aren't going to want to go to a directory of attorneys, which you're going to see here with FindLaw, which you're going to see with Justia. So typically the first local business is going to get clicked on about 30% of the time. Some statistics show 33, some show 28. So let's just talk about a happy medium of about 30.
Yeah, that's gonna vary from time to time in different industries, but that's like it's in that ballpark, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
So and the second one, I've seen some statistics that say 18%, some that say 14%. The third one, I see some that say 12% and some that say like 13%. So when you look at all of these statistics and combine them and get averages, basically half of your people, when they do a search, are going to click on one of the first 3 local businesses. So, sometimes they're going to slant more towards the first, sometimes more towards second or third. let's just suffice it to say half the time when someone does a search, they're going to click on one of the first 3 businesses. So if you're wanting to gain more traffic, more potential clients from somebody when they're doing a search on Google, Yahoo, or Bing, it's going to benefit you greatly to be one of the first 3. Very rarely, and I believe last I saw was less than about 4% of the time, will anyone ever click from page 1 to page 2. It's the good internet geek sense of humor, and let me say that from the beginning, some of us internet geeks don't have much of a sense of humor, but the joke is the best place to hide a dead body is on the second page of Google because it'll be rarely ever be found. So when someone's doing a search, predominantly they're going to make a buying decision from the first page more often than not. So that's kind of the anatomy of Google. There are a lot of times we're dealing with marketers. I just want you to understand when someone's talking to you, if they're talking about buying ads, they're talking about up here. If they're talking about local SEO, predominantly they're talking about in the maps. But traditional search engine optimization, or SEO, is going to be helping you with organic, and some companies that do it and do it well are going to help you with both the maps as well as the organic. And they may also help you with the ads, because this is basically like real estate. The more positions you have here, the more touches you have with someone looking for your services or your products, the higher the opportunity they have of clicking on you and making a buying decision with you. So if you can have a position in all 3, that's better than 1. I'm not very good with math, but I think 3 is better chance than 1. If by chance you have different properties that you can get down here and have 4 or 5 or 6, the more real estate you own on that first page, the more of a chance it is for somebody to hire you for your services or your products.
Yeah, it's really big. One of the things that's kind of come up, I say recently, within the last, couple years, is that Google's actually selling ad space in the maps as well, right? And so when we talk about local SEO, a lot of times people talk about maps. There can actually be ads there, and ads are within Google's purveyance of their first page. Those are on a pay per click basis, meaning that every time somebody clicks on that link that takes them to your Google My Business page or your website, you're going to pay. And it can be a way to make money. But what we're talking about specifically today is stuff that you don't have to pay every time somebody clicks on it, right? You kind of pay to set the conditions for showing up there. And every time somebody clicks on it, doesn't cost you a dime more. My experience, there's a lot of studies that bear this out, is that as a medium to longer term investment, search engine optimization, organic search engine optimization that Glenn has been talking about, of the actual website links, are the highest ROI. Meaning that if you're going to spend $100, you're going to get the highest return on investment, meaning the amount of revenue that your business generates based on those organic listings. It's not always the case, but kind of by and large. And if you're talking to somebody who is, discussing this with you, getting some clarity on what they're actually going to be doing and what they're actually going to be trying to do. And one of the next things we're going to go into is kind of one of the nuances of doing this, right? So Glenn did a search here for attorney Las Vegas. This is a big term, right? I think a lot of people who watch this can understand that if you are ranked in a position that gets a lot of eyes and a lot of traffic for a term like this, you're going to make a lot of money. What a lot of search engine optimization companies do, I say search engine optimization companies a little bit facetiously, because what they're doing is actually ranking you potentially for terms that really don't get much traffic at all. Something that we refer to as a long tail keyword, or even kind of a junk keyword. A junk keyword, this is going to maybe sound a little, contentious or weird, but if a search engine optimization company says, I'm going to rank you for your business name and your city, they are taking your money and doing very little for you. Glenn, do you want to maybe do a search for some kind of maybe like Henderson and some long tail nuance, legal. Let's just kind of stay with legal because we're on that track. Do a search for one of the suburbs of Las Vegas, and then some kind of very specific element of attorneys or legal niche.
Yeah, so let's just say we type best criminal attorney in Henderson, Nevada. Now, it may make you feel good, and people will take your money to make you rank for the best criminal attorney in Henderson, Nevada. But the reality of it is that may get searched 10 or 15 times a month. And back to what we were talking about here, one thing when we're talking about simple numbers. So let's say, for instance, this was searched 100 times a month. If all three of these are going to share about 15, that means you might get about 4 clicks a month. If all three of these are going to share about 10, that means you might get about 3 clicks a month. But remember, we said the second position down here or the third are get 15 or 12. That means you get 15 or 12 clicks a month. So it doesn't take very complicated math to know that these are going to get hit more. And like Flex was saying, if you're going to type in a long search phrase, something that's not searched very often, it's very easy to rank for something when there's less competition. So I've been in different times when I've been in meetings. I remember one I was in probably 15 years ago, and I'm sitting in a real estate office and having a meeting in a boardroom, and they literally get a phone call that says, hey, we can make you #1 for this on Google for $300 a month. Well, I just happened to have my computer open. I went to a tool that would tell me how many times people were searching that, and it was searched less than 5 times per month. So it's always good to have better position, better exposure. But if you're in the desert and you have a big red beacon on your head, it really doesn't help if there's no one looking for you in the desert. So it's always good to kind of know, what am I getting? What are my options for a potential return off my investment? Am I fishing in a lake with 1,000 fish, or am I fishing in a lake with 3 fishes? It's kind of hard to catch that 3 fish if it's a big lake versus 1,000 of them. So it's just kind of keeping those things in perspective.
So one of the things, scroll down a little bit on your screen there, Glenn, for me to the top, maybe 4 organic listings. So one of the things I'm noticing here as I look at this is, so Glenn's last search was attorney Las Vegas, big term, right? And 2 of the things that were mentioned, the websites that were mentioned, were Justia and FindLaw. Okay. We also find those here. Those are both directory sites, right? Those are both kind of pay to play. You pay to get your, business card essentially on their website, and their website is big and powerful and it gets some traffic. But a lot of people are just not looking for a directory, right? They want to know a little bit more about the personality and a little bit more about the approach that business is going to take. And so one of the things that also comes into play, if you scroll up some more, we're talking about organic search, but up toward the top with the paid ads. So if you're buying pay-per-click, a term like this may be something that you actually do want to pay per click for, right? Because it's a very specific term. Because there's only maybe 100 people per month looking for it, you're probably not going to be laying down a lot of cash on those clicks. But if somebody is looking for a very specific search phrase, you might want to think about including yourself in these pay-per-click ads, because you can just essentially buy them, right? So the reason I kind of pointed out that FindLaw and Justia were ranking for both the big term as well as the small term is that when you set your website up properly, which is like the place we come from, we build web standards SEO built websites that are accessible to all. We also build them in the way that search engines can understand and value. You wind up ranking not only for the big terms like attorney Las Vegas, but you can also then rank for best criminal attorney in Henderson, Nevada, right? And we can see that that's totally possible because the example that got pulled up here, and this is kind of random, we didn't go through and look at it, but more and more we see sites that are built well and that have influence ranking not only for those big terms, but all of the small terms below it. The biggest ROI, if you want to win, if you want your business to win, going after main terms, building a website that's built and structured around those search phrases that get searched a lot, and doing that well is going to get you all of this, the traffic for those more specific or longer tail search phrases that we pulled up here with best criminal attorney in Henderson, Nevada, right? Ideally, you get both. And ideally is what we're shooting for, building a website properly that has a lot of influence and search. What I call search engine influence building is kind of how I approach doing this type of thing. You can accomplish both of those. You don't have to say, oh, I want that or I want this. It's a much longer process, and it's more convoluted, and it takes a lot more effort and resources, and it's longer. There's a lot longer payoff to go after all these tiny little search phrases, right? To get the big one. You kind of want to build a website that's architecture and its content is indicative of somebody who is an actual attorney in Las Vegas, and they can handle everything that you'd be looking for an attorney to do, right? And then all of the supporting content and links and everything else that we do that's a little gobbledygook to get too in the weeds with today, comes into play when we're talking about how does a search engine work, right? It understands all that. Understands not really the right word, but it qualifies all that to make sure that you're the right result to put on page one. Because what a search engine's really about doing is the stuff that's at the top. That's how they make money, right? Google only makes money by selling ads for those top positions. That's one of the reasons they put it at the top. Now, people have used search engines long enough to know that those are paid ads. Those aren't necessarily the best businesses with the best reviews and the best track record of providing good services. And so people have become a little bit blind, so to speak. Ad blindness is a concept that we, or a term that we use to describe a behavior for people who use search engines. They kind of skip the ads, right? And they'll go to maps or they'll go to organic. And so maybe, Glenn, we could jump into kind of the differences in what the maps are versus organic. They do overlap and intermingle, to a reasonable degree, but they are fundamentally different. And if you think you are paying Google, if you think you are buying local SEO, expecting to get your website ranked, you may be very off base on that assumption.
Yeah, a lot of times I see people out there that are talking about local SEO, and I see businesses think that means, like kind of like what Fletcher was mentioning, that okay, I'm going to rank my website in my local area. Well, most of the time, and this isn't exact because different people are going to use different verbiage, but when someone's talking about local SEO, they're talking about trying to rank your map here in the top 3 when someone's doing a search for a phrase. Now, a lot of the stuff with the map is what's called geo-based. So Google does a lot of the things, especially for the map, based around cell phones and geography of where the IP address is that you're doing a search from. So to get a Henderson location to rank in Las Vegas with a map is very difficult, not impossible, but very difficult. So it's kind of difficult to get your map to appear out in local areas, especially let's say Phoenix where Fletch is, to appear in Glendale, in Scottsdale, and different things like that. It's very difficult to tell Google that this map that's in Glendale is more relevant than this map over here that's in Scottsdale when someone's doing a search in Scottsdale. So typically when you're doing local or map optimization, you're dealing with a lot smaller piece of the pie than an entire metro. Where with the organic area down here, if you're working with a company that understands how to do the foundation, the web standards that Fletch was talking about earlier, then you can actually take and optimize and build a website so that it can rank in multiple cities, multiple suburbs and stuff like that, so that you're, again, going to be searching or getting in front of more people in a larger area looking for your services and products versus just people looking in your local area and coming up in the maps. So that's why a lot of times this local SEO, you will hear prices of $200, $300, $400 a month, where for an attorney in particular, in Las Vegas, you're going to be talking a few $1,000s a month to optimize in the organic area because you're in front of a lot bigger pool of people having a lot more opportunity to make a better return on your investment. There's some articles I can share with people that I've seen over the years, whether it be Search Engine Journal and stuff like this, that really have broken it down good for business owners. And it kind of shares with them that if you have someone that's talking to you about building a website for less than a few $1,000s, they probably aren't building the website right. If they're trying to build an e-commerce website for less than $7,000 or $8,000 for you, they're probably not building the website properly for you. If they're trying to offer search engine optimization for less than, let's say, $700 a month for a less competitive phrase. So a good analogy for this may be like a chiropractor that also does spinal decompression. Chiropractic phrase is going to be a lot more competitive. If they're just trying to optimize you for spinal decompression, you can do that for a lesser amount of money. So optimization, in my experience, is always kind of about a little bit supply and demand or competition. The more good websites in your area that are investing in this, the more labor and work that goes into making it rank for you. If you're in, Mead, Nevada, there's only about 10 businesses. Guess what? You don't need very much of a rocket scientist to do a whole lot of influence building, like Fletch was mentioning, to be up there and be visible. But if you're in Las Vegas, if you're in Phoenix, if you're in San Diego, where you have a lot more competition, a lot more people having the propensity to build websites properly and build the influence around them, then it's going to cost a little bit more to have better position, just because it's a supply and demand, it's competition. But the organic place down here that we're talking about is definitely the most ideal place for you. But again, as I mentioned before, what you really want to do is have a few different positions on the first page of Google here. And like Fletch was mentioning before, a lot of times marketers will do 1 or 2 or 3 different things. They may not do everything for you. So sometimes the best approach is a blended approach. Maybe you want to be buying these ads while you're working on the map and while you're working on your website coming up there. And then as you start getting more business, if you've reached the amount of business you like, then maybe you stop spending some of that money on the pay-per-click. If it's still, and you're separating all of them out, as long as they're giving you a return on your investment and you can handle more business, sometimes it makes sense to be in all 3. So if you're not really talking with someone that's really asking you about your business, finding out how much business you can handle, and really providing you a solution, sometimes they may be asking you to put a round peg in a square hole.
Yeah, one of the things you brought up is it bears, I think, maybe focusing on or pulling apart a little bit more. A lot of digital marketing agencies offer packages. Mine does as well, right? I'm a partner in currently 2 different SEO companies, digital marketing companies, and we have packages, right? One of them may include focusing on your website, right? If you're an e-commerce company, you're not worried about local SEO and maps, right? Maybe you don't want to do paid ads. You're only really wanting to get that website ranked for your product, right? That you're offering through the platform that you have, right? Your website. So that's kind of straightforward and clear and clean. And so you're paying for that result, right? That result is going to take some time. With organic SEO, you're looking at 6 months plus to start to get that payoff, right? But again, you're looking at what to do with your money. It's strategy. So if I put my money in something today, when can I expect to get a result back? Some people are more drawn to, well, I want to get money back today or tomorrow. Okay, well, if that's the case, then the money you get back today or tomorrow may not be very much, right? Might not even cover the cost that it took you to pay for a sign spinner, right? To stand out in front of your business and do the whirly twirly stuff and try to get somebody to come and, get their beard trimmed, which I might need. I don't know. But what I'm getting at is that you have to look at this from the perspective of, where do I want to invest my resources? And there are times when you'll talk to a digital marketing agency that says, hey, we are going to get you in the maps. We're going to get you in organic, and we're going to do pay-per-click as well. Okay. So if we're doing all 3 of those, if you don't really have a way of understanding, okay, I'm getting more phone calls, but where are they coming from? Right? If you haven't been able to pull those apart, if you don't have separate, phones ringing and tracking phone numbers and all that kind of thing, it may seem like, hey, okay, yeah, I am spending $5,000 a month, and I'm getting some more phone calls, and but it maybe it's part of the long-term strategy that I'm not, really even breaking even yet. If you don't know, I say exactly, if you don't really know where the digital marketing agency is allocating resources, right? They may be doing some pay-per-click and getting you phone calls immediately. That's going to help you kind of feel good about the services they provide, while there's not really ever going to be any long-term payoff, because they're allocating a lot of that budget that you're paying them monthly. If you're paying them $5,000 a month, maybe they're allocating 4,000 of that to pay-per-click. And that's why you're getting initial phone calls, but it's never going to be more than that amount of phone calls that you're getting currently. The long-term payoff is just not going to be there. And so that's one of the things that we want to talk. Yeah, Glenn, you've got something to say there. Jump in. Yeah.
Well, I have a friend that I'm doing some work for in Southern California that has a construction company, and they wanted to get in a little bit of water damage. And they dealt with a marketer they met prior to my meeting them. And they told them they would run some ads for them for $500 a month. Well, one thing to keep in mind is if someone's running ads for you for $500 a month, they're not doing it for free, and they're trying to make a profit on there. So they made a mistake of looking at and giving them a budget of $500 a month for water damage in Orange County, California. That right now it's $175 every time someone clicks on that little ad at the top to come to your website. Well, if someone's, say, making $200 a month and allocating $300 a month to your ads, that means you get 2 clicks a month. Now, it never worked out for this person. They never got any calls. They questioned if the person ever did the job. And I had to come in and kind of explain to them that, they may have done the job, but they made a mistake of establishing a budget, because at 2 clicks per month, what are the odds that I click on something now, I'm looking for something at work, I get home and tell my wife, hey, I found somebody to do it. I go back there and now your budget's spent, you're gone. So you have to kind of have realistic expectations anytime you're doing those ads, that this is how many people are searching. If you're running ads, you realistically want to make sure that all of your ads are running 90% of the time, so that if I do get home that night and I go back and do a search on Google again, my ad is still showing up to show it to my wife. If you're not doing things like that, then you're probably setting yourself up to not be successful from the beginning. So there's a lot that goes into kind of the psychology and the science behind all of these, whether it be the ads, the maps, or the organic, to make sure that you're setting yourself up to succeed in any level that you're actually engaging in.
Yeah. So one of the things that we can talk about a little bit, maybe flesh out, not to get too much in the details and the weeds again, but that $175 per click is not always $175 per click, right? There are some things that come into play that will adjust what that number is. And it's not just competition. There's another factor that comes into play quite a lot called quality score. And that has to do with how your website's built, right? How it communicates, how clear it is, the factors in place on your website. So someone may have to pay $175 to get that click to their website. But if you want to buy traffic from an ad to your website and you've got it built more properly with better factors in place, you may only have to pay $100 or even less than that potentially, right? There's a wide margin in difference there. And so again, we're kind of circling back around to let's look at what I've done, right, and been successful with. And also then, because I've been successful with it in my own business, what I do for other businesses and recommend for other businesses. Get your website right, because it's going to save you money, whether you want to run pay-per-click. If you're trying to get we'll circle back around and talk about how the maps and the organic are linked together, but they're all coming back to your website being built well, being built properly, communicating properly, and being something that Google or any other search engine is going to look at as, okay, they've got their stuff together, and it, yes, is about this thing that they want to get traffic for. So Glenn, do you want to kind of spin off on that, or you want to maybe then jump into how maps and organic are linked as well?
Yeah, and I think the important thing is, again, if you're not starting from the foundation, and I call your website your foundation of everything you're going to do online, if that foundation isn't built properly, you're going to spend so much more money on ads, so much more money on optimization, that if you just spend a little bit more money on that website and make it be built properly, work with someone that's going to build it properly, it's going to save you so much money in the long run. I've shown people for years that, you know what, I can go in and start doing optimization for you at $3,000 a month for this phrase in this area. Or if you spend $3,000 right now on your website, I can do it for $2,000 a month as an example. Well, it doesn't take very long to realize, okay, I'm spending the same the first month, but now every month for the rest of my time I'm working with you, I'm saving $1,000. Yes, it makes sense to fix the website for that example. And then once you have that website built, as you were mentioning, kind of the Google Maps and your optimization, I don't understand why people at that point don't focus on your brand and pulling everything back together. I've worked a lot with one insurance company over the years that almost every agent in this insurance company has two different URLs. And they have one URL as a universal resource locator. That's your website address you see up in the top of your bar. So like abc.com, nbc.com/Las Vegas. That's your web address. And they have one web address that's the primary one in the company that has a very, very strong score. And inevitably, 90% of the time, they built this other little site for their agents called like a microsite, just something small, just a little website for them. And in the maps, it'll have this little bitty website. And they wonder why nothing works. And literally, we can go in and connect the map and the address it clicks to over to the main site. And then, boom, they both increase exposure and increase presence quickly on Google. And like, oh my God, you're a genius. No, I just followed the rules, made sure everything was connecting. All your vectors were running in the right direction and having everything connected so that Google's like, oh, this property is related to this property and this property. These are all 10 or 15 properties related to Joshua. Oh, well, then, yeah, it makes sense to deliver them when they're looking for something that Joshua's delivering to them.
Yeah, that some of the common language that kind of the people who are, geek out on some of this stuff with search engine optimization, they use a phrase called like entity, right? And so if your entity is built properly online, and Glenn and I use just some different terminology, but it kind of really comes down to the same thing. So you've got your website, right? And that's a single domain and all of the inner pages and all that stuff, right? That's one aspect, right? And then you've got the stuff that's like, oh, that's my Facebook page. That's my YouTube channel. That's my Twitter feed. That's my Insta account, right? Those are your brand, right? Those are your company, your entity. Say your brand, right? If you're a person, if you're a celebrity, a coach or whatever, or if you're a roofing company, doesn't matter. Those are then the entity. Getting that right, getting that more influential. I don't know if you want to like bring up, do a brand search for one of your companies that's got knowledge. So we're going to, I want to show one other element, which is called a knowledge graph. And this is if somebody is looking for your company and they may have seen an offline ad, right? Maybe heard about you through a radio ad or a billboard, or had somebody say, oh yeah, I used Web Alley to get my website built, right? For instance, or Glenn or Josh or ABC Roofing Company. And so somebody types in ABC Roofing Company and it pulls up what's called a knowledge graph. This is another way that first page of Google, the search engine result page, can look. And this really speaks to that entity being a very influential, impactful piece of what search engines look at when they're determining, oh yes, this is a trustworthy, influential entity or company or person that we've linked all this stuff together, and this is who they are. This is where they're represented. So Glenn, do you want to kind of dig into this here?
Sure. This is Farhan Naqvi. He's one of the personal injury attorneys in Las Vegas that does a tremendous amount of advertising, whether it be TV, radio, billboard, and online. So I did this one to talk about what you're talking about and then circle back around to something you made a comment before in the past. Now, I'm sure they may be buying this ad for their name just to compete against someone that may have actually tried to buy their name, purchase an ad for their name. But as you talk about this, you have what's called the infograph. So instead of showing other maps that we showed 3 different map selections, it's just his map in there because his properties are all branded right. His entities are created properly, however you want to phrase it. And then as you start scrolling down the page, as Fletch mentioned earlier, with buying ads, it's Naqvi. It's Naqvi's Facebook page, Naqvi's Yelp page, Naqvi's Super Pages page, Naqvi's Nevada business page, some images, because these images were coded properly on the backside, posted in different places, so you see images of him that are associated with him and or his business. Again, you have the Nevada business page with his page on there. The Martindale Hubble, which is another big attorney directory, martindale.com. So Yeah, when you build your entities out properly, you should see something like this. And when everything is connected properly to your website, then your website is the first thing that shows up here. If you're typing in your name of your business, of yourself, if you're your own personal brand versus a professional, or professional brand versus personal brand, if your website is not showing up here first, I'm going to tell you some of your vectors are not in line and your entities are not associated properly, because this should have links from the website over to this page. It should link from his Facebook to this page. So this should be like the center of your sphere with other influencing vectors coming in all around it.
Yeah, we think about it kind of like a galaxy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got a solar system, right? So wait, yeah, solar system's different than a galaxy. You got to think for a second, right? So we got like the sun at the middle of our particular solar system. We've got these planets rotating around. These different planets are these different websites, right? Well, that's Facebook's website, right?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody goes and click on the Facebook link there. So I've clicked on now NACV, right? And I'm going to their Facebook page, right? So if you have a typical, I don't know how your browser's set up, but a typical person that would click on this may actually be shown ads for one of your competitors,
Mm-hmm.
because they are on Facebook and Facebook is looking to make money. One of the reasons that we want your website to rank number one for your brand name is because we want to make sure that other people are not essentially siphoning some of the traffic for the advertising and the influence that you're putting in place on the internet. And so if you go back, Glenn, and I don't know how easy it's going to be to find his Google My Business. Google My Business is going to work kind of the same way. And one of the reasons, so people are, and I'm a fan of map listings as well. I love geostatistics. I understand how it works. It gets you a lot of clicks. But if you click on the Google My Business site, you are still not on your website. You're going to be shown ads there as well. And so while I absolutely recommend to most local service operators, local service companies, right, that go out and do roofing or chiropractic or they're a restaurant or whatever, to make sure you get your Google My Business ranked well in maps, somebody that's on your map listing may wind up seeing an advertisement for another website. Yelp is a great example of this, right? If you don't pay to play, so to speak, with Yelp, you're going to wind up with some bad reviews showing, right? They've had lawsuits about this, but it's their site. They get to do what they want on their site. And you're also going to, the searcher, right? The person who's using a search engine to try to find a great Nepalese restaurant or whatever it might be is going to see competitors' websites or other ethnic food or whatever it might be. And so this is one of the reasons that we start with getting your website done well. We want to make sure that it is the first thing and the primary place people go to find out information about you. These are all these other places are great, and they help establish you as an influential, entity that's going to be able to rank for these other search phrases. If somebody's not looking for NACV, for instance, and they're just looking for an attorney that maybe specializes in what this man does or his firm does, we want to make sure we get that traffic. But specifically, if you go and you look up your company name and you're not dominating the first page like this, you've got some significant problems with the way search engines recognize you as an influential business entity in your area.
Well, and I know we keep coming back to this, but I hope it makes people understand that we keep speaking about this because of the importance of this. Your website here is your first and foremost salesperson working for you 24/7. So if it's not built properly in the correct manner, it's going to affect how many people are going to contact you. I literally was speaking with an attorney this morning who had mentioned that he had someone make his site more accessible for the stuff we talk about for working with disabled people. It took me 3 seconds to tell him, no, your site's not accessible. And there were some other little things. But now, to be fair, he spent $300 to have someone in another country build this website. So he got what he paid for. He just has champagne expectations on white beer can budget. And that doesn't work very well, guys. Up here at the top, you see this little padlock. Chrome started showing that about a year or two ago. So it makes people know, okay, this site's secure. I can feel safe and have a warm blanket around me to come visit it. This attorney's website did not even have what's called an SSL, or a secured socket layer. It makes your site more secure when anytime information is being conducted there. So if you're not doing some of these little things, guys, it doesn't matter how much traffic you can get to a website, whether it be you're paying for the traffic, it's organic, it's never going to turn into clients for you. So not only are we talking about some of these things for better rankings, we're back again to that website. If it's not built properly, it's not going to perform for you as well as some of this maybe 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th down the list on Google, because that website will work for people, it will make them feel comfortable, and it will convert better. So you have a lot of science that goes in the back of building this website before you should even think about, like Fletch mentioned, buying an ad, trying to rank yourself, trying to drive traffic to it. We've worked with several clients over especially the last few years, with helping them with this, making their sites more accessible for disabled people that were on poor platforms, let's call them. We call them CMS, or different platforms where they're, and without naming names, they're places where you can go and build a website.
Content management systems.
Yes.
So wherever you're going to be able to, post your stuff, and then it winds up on a website, right? That's content management system, CMS. Yep.
So let's be realistic. If you see, everyone's seen these commercials. Oh, for $200, you can build your website and be out at the beach this afternoon and people buying your product. That doesn't happen. We have built several websites over the last couple of years that someone was using one of those inexpensive $100, $200, $300 platforms where they went on and built their website themselves. And just from being in the community for years, for being associated with Chamber of Commerce's, Better Business Bureaus, and things like this, we have taken their website, built it so that it's more accessible, so it works for everyone that lands on their website, and built it in a proper manner that they've gone from not being on the first 10 pages of Google to being number one for their service in their city, without charging to do anything else, just because all the foundation was built properly. And their website was built in a manner to where Google's like, oh, that's what this person does, or this company does. Let's put them right here.
Yeah. So this is kind of one of the things, like if we pull the phrase search engine optimization apart, optimization, right? Optimization speaks to efficiency. It speaks to the right decision. It speaks to strategically allocating your resources in a place that's going to get you a big impact, right? And the reasonable place to start with a lot of businesses, I'd venture to say 90% plus, is getting your website built well on a platform that communicates well to places where you're going to get traffic, like Google or Bing or Yahoo or YouTube or whatever it might be, right? If you've got that website built properly, that's going to be a great place to have invested your initial chunk of money. From there, get your entity done, which includes then Facebook, YouTube, and some of these other platforms that there's a lot of people on, right? Search engines specifically are going to look at, oh, hey, here's a business that is actively tweeting things, that has a Facebook page that looks like it's built out in a way that communicates to us that this is one entity, and they do roofing, they repair tile roofs or whatever specialty you might be in. And then from there, looking at ongoing search engine influence building, what a lot you could call search SEO as well, ongoing SEO or paid ads, or getting in the maps, until you've got your website done well and your entity done well. There are very few instances I see trying to get in the maps or doing paid ads that are the right place for you to allocate your resources if you intend to stay in business for more than a year, right? There are quick hit and run type places you can spend money, but you're going to have to redo it with a lot of turnover, right? Maps, there's some maps strategies that are very much that way, right? But there's just a lot of churn and burn and turnover and things like that. And so, if you've got a business you care about and that you intend to stay in long term, if you intend to, kind of buck the system and beat that, whatever percentage of businesses are out of business in 3 years, which may even go up exponentially with the whole COVID situation and pandemic. You really want to look at getting, kind of your bases covered and allocate the resources you have to making sure that you can kind of weather any storm that comes up, and that the things you do from then on, like Glenn talked about, right? Okay, we can do this for you for $3,000 a month, or we can do this for you for $3 a month, and then the ongoing is going to be $2. Well, so 3 and then 3, that's 6. So in 2 months, you're ahead of the curve as far as what you're going to be spending. So like sometimes I make bad decisions. A lot of times I make bad decisions, but if I'm looking at just pure numbers, which, if you're looking at your business and you're not looking at the numbers, you're going to run into trouble pretty fast anyway. Your budget, your allocation, getting spent on getting your website right, getting your business entity formed properly, and then from there looking at other places you can garner traffic is across the board what I see as, if you're just going to say, I'm going to go for this blindly, that's what you should make sure is in place. I also recommend not going for it blindly, looking at your exact situation, talking to somebody who can talk you through this and can speak to you about the specific elements in your situation with your business and your location and what you want to get traffic for and what you do well. And the big piece that came up that Glenn talked about, what your competition is doing, right? Because you may be in what feels like a small suburb, like Paradise Valley, which is in the Phoenix metro area, except that it's crazy expensive, right? Prescott, Arizona, it has the highest population of billionaires per capita of any place in the United States. Well, it also seems like an Old West cow town. You wouldn't necessarily expect it. But if you're trying to rank for financial management in Prescott, Arizona, the competition is going to drive things significantly one direction based on where you might be. So you really need to talk to somebody who knows how to look at this, look at your situation, look at your specific, what you want to do with your business and where you are, and kind of talk you through it so they can help you understand how to approach this and how to, get your stuff built in a way that's going to grow over time, where you've got a strong ROI and where that you're not going to have to like, oh man, I wish 6 months ago I'd have done this differently because I'd be in a different place now.
Well, and a lot of it goes to what I kind of call website architecture. One of our specialties has been the past few years is helping people rank in multiple cities. Some people call it multi-location optimization. You can call it a multitude of things, but if you're in Phoenix metro area where Fletch is, and you want to be able to rank for all those cities, your Prescott's, your Scottsdale's, your Tempe's and stuff like that, you really need to understand how to build out a website horizontally versus vertically. That means building out a lot bigger sites that are going to be very specific to help rank in Tempe, in Scottsdale, in Glendale, and stuff like that. And I still see a majority of web designers that don't understand that. I have had 3 websites I've looked at in the past month. It's kind of been interesting. One of them quit working with us about 4 years ago. One quit working a year and a half ago, and one just quit last month because they wanted to bring things in-house. They didn't want to keep spending money on this. And they've had new people redesign their website and didn't take a look at how we built the website prior to this, just thought they knew what they were doing. And all these businesses, one was a roofing company, one was a law firm, and one was an insurance company. And literally within 30 days, they lost 80% of their traffic coming in their websites just because they didn't know how to build a website to rank in a lot of different areas. So if someone's trying to tell you that they can help rank you in the whole Phoenix metro, in the whole, and let's say in Orange County, California, or anything like that, you really need to ask them, so what's your method and how are you going to do this? And if they don't tell you that they're building out a lot larger site for you, they probably don't understand the basics of how to rank in multiple locations in 2020, especially with regards to Google, Yahoo, or Bing. Because where we have gone in at times, and a client we're working with there right now, that when we started working with them, they were getting about 40 clicks per month to their website, and it was all just from the blogs that they had created. Well, their site when we took over had 25 pages. Now it has 800 pages on there, and we're getting 1,250 to 1,500 clicks per month versus 40. So if you don't understand architecture and how to build that foundation, you're kind of beating your head against the wall trying to do something, because you're not going to compete with people in Tempe that have built a website properly when you're in Glendale and you haven't.
Yeah, that's really big. And the more I've gotten into this and started to understand the science and the math that drives it, it's not ever going to be different than that. Thinking that there's going to be some revolutionary way that people understand influence and can plot it to math, like the algorithm is a term you're going to hear if you're considering search engine optimization or whatever online. The math speaks to influence, and influence really has to do with relevance and importance, right? It has to do with, like, how influential can you be? Well, how influential you can be has to do with what you know, who you can help, and who knows you, who knows that you're the person to go see about roofing. And that who knows you comes down to links and these things that people, that from like an SEO agency perspective, that's one of the things that they're going to be doing for you in an ongoing way. But as Glenn talked about, getting that website built properly, one of the things we do in an ongoing way is to keep you relevant, right? To make sure that you continue to have good information that's kind of fresh and new from a different angle, a different perspective that helps you be viewed as relevant in a different city or with a different service or with a different nuance of a service. Maybe there's a repair keyword that you want to rank for. Right now, you rank, but not for the repair keyword. Well, why? Well, it's possible that you don't have a page on your website that talks about repair at all. It looks like your new construction only, right? If we're looking at a construction company. So these are the things that you really need to consider. Again, this gets things kind of overcomplicated. What we really want to make sure you get is all the clicks. We want to make sure you win, right? But if the people you're talking to cannot answer these questions or refuse to, it might be because they can't, and it might be because they aren't doing things in a way that are going to get you long-term results that are solid, that are secure, that you've invested money in, that are going to last over time. And like, it's something to be aware of, right? And that's one of the things that we want to do with this kind of mini series here, is to help people become more aware of how search engines work, what people are doing when they go to search engines, where they're clicking, right? What organic is versus maps versus knowledge graph versus ads, right? All that kind of thing. It really boils down to making sure that you've got an offer that converts and you can deliver that offer. But as this looks online, there's some other moving parts and pieces that you need to make sure are in place. And the great thing about having your you actually own your website. You don't own your Google page or your Facebook page. You don't own your YouTube channel, right? There are people who have been deplatformed, so to speak, right? You don't own those. There's not much you can do to say you own them. If you look at and read the full terms of service, putting most of your effort into those elements of your online business strategy may pay off well, but you don't own them. And if you're looking at building a business that's secure and that you might even look at, potentially selling, making sure your website's done properly, your entity is done properly. Again, we don't own those, but we can set them up in a way that makes it, that communicates authority and influence, right? And that's really kind of what we want to get to. And then from there, getting the word out so that other people are saying, oh yeah, I know them and they do good work, right? So to speak. It sounds like a review, but that's really what a link is about. I know that person and they do good work about this thing. That's anchor text. So to get a little more specific and to not gloss this over too much from the 30,000 foot view, this is very specific. If you don't have those details right, again, you may not win. So making sure that you're working with somebody who knows the details as well as the big picture is critical to making sure that you win as big as you can with the money you're investing. And in having done this as long as I have, I make money, right? I make good money. my clients do as well, right? That's the only relationship that works. So don't expect to get off really cheap, so to speak, in what you're paying for. You're going to pay for what you get, but you should make a return on your investment, as well as the company that you're working with being able to do well enough to provide you great service and keep you apprised of how things are going online for you.
Yeah. And it's always good to speak with a couple of people, because you don't know what you don't know. And in my experience, you'll quickly gravitate towards those that can answer your questions properly, can provide you clear information, and are a little bit more transparent. And you'll see which ones make sense for you to work with.
Yeah. All right, Glenn, we've run a little over an hour today. Again, if you like this, feel free to like, share, ask comments, and comment questions to us.
So,
we always circle back around and we look at whatever gets posted, and we either answer there in the thread, or we come up with a new video or piece of content to address whatever things we didn't cover today, or that may have been, kind of confusing or ambiguous or whatever it might be. So we run these at least once a week. Currently right now, Glenn and I are partners in a business called Web Alley. It's WEBA11Y.net. If you are interested in contacting either of us to find out more about what we do and how we build websites and what we do for search engine optimization, search engine influence building, and making sure your business gets traffic and grows, we'd love to talk to you. So that is what I've got. Glenn, have you got any further parting words before we wrap up today?
nope. Have a great day. I'm going to change some shoes and we're going for a hike.
Enjoy. Hey, we got a little cool weather. Glenn's in
Exactly.
Vegas. I'm in Phoenix. We're not hitting 100 today. So it's awesome.
The little things we enjoy.
The little things we enjoy. All right, guys, take care. We'll talk to you next time.
Take care. Bye.